and welcome to this violin technique critique. I am getting ready to release my first set of violin technique tutorials, and so I thought it could be really a fun project to create a chronology video that basically chronicles my journey of my violin studies and displays for you my journey from what is currently referred to as Franco-Belgian technique to what is currently referred to as Russian violin technique, the technique that I am teaching in my tutorials. So I will do a left-hand critique of my own technique at a later time, but because the first set of tutorials is strictly about bow technique, this video will also strictly be about bow technique. So this will be really fun. And just before we dive in, I want to get out one thing on the table, which is that although the technique that I use and teach with is commonly referred to in the United States, mostly, and some places in Europe, as Russian violin technique, that is actually not correct. It's a misnomer. I actually don't want to get into the weeds of the origin of the misnomer or the origin of these techniques. There are a lot of other places on the internet and on my channel where you can find research that outlines the history of the origin of this technique that I use. However, I do want to take this opportunity to let you all know that I am on a campaign to change the name. So I think it would be much better if, when we refer to this technical style that is currently known as Russian violin technique, we call it something else because it's not a correct name. It would be better to refer to this technique as something that is more appropriate and more accurate for its origins and more reflecting of its origins. The name that I've chosen to use is Golden Era Violin Technique, and I'm going to be referring to this technique as Golden Era Violin Technique in all of the things that I put out from now on my channel or on my website. That is what I'm going to be using to refer to what is currently commonly known as Russian technique. I will be using the term Golden Era Violin Technique from now on. And that is because the origins are from the great masters of the violin from the golden era of violin. We're talking about Heifetz, we're talking Leopold Auer, Milstein, Elman, and Wieniawski, although he's earlier. I feel that this is a more appropriate name, and so I welcome you to join me in the campaign to change the way people refer to this technique. Okay, so let's get back to the chronology of my technical evolution. I want to use this chronological progression as a way to explore and to demonstrate why I choose to play and teach with Golden Era violin technique. So as I mentioned, in my younger years, I was playing with a Franco-Belgian bow hold. It was not until I attended university that I made this switch to Golden Era violin technique. So you'll see the change in the process of this chronology video. I'm going to be critiquing all of my technique in this video, and I will mostly be honing in on what is not working well, in my opinion. So that is no shade to any of my teachers, because they were all just very loving and nurturing, and I'm very grateful and blessed to have the teachers that I did. I feel a lot of gratitude for the technical elements even that I have retained from each teacher along the way, as my technique has taken its own shape throughout the course of my life. And to all of my Franco-Belgian playing friends, I just want to say I have many of you that use Franco-Belgian technique, and I love you. I think you play beautifully. And this video is just an opportunity for me to delineate why I choose to use the technique that I use. So if you don't like it, that's okay. Feel free to, share with your friends and let everybody know which technique you prefer. Okay, so last item before we dive in. Sometimes it's easy to fall into the misconception that the only difference between these two techniques is the placement of the index finger. And I would like to show in this video that there is a bigger difference than that. The placement of the index finger is merely a signifier of basically a completely different set of rules for playing the violin. I'm going to get into it with criticism of my own technique and hope that we can all just learn something from it, and if nothing, just be able to tell the difference between the two techniques. So let's dive in. There's cute little Emily, 14 years old. This is unfortunately the earliest footage. So I think for my age, my bow technique is working relatively well, and just for the, to take with a grain of salt the fact that I'm still a student at this point, so I'm still learning all of these different technical elements. The thing that troubles me the most about this bow arm is that the height of the elbow is almost always the same. So I'm not really engaging in allowing my elbow to achieve different heights for what string I'm playing on. I actually haven't learned anything about using the natural weight of my arm, so it makes it so that the bow arm can't really rest into the string. Okay, some little intonation trouble here. But what I want you to notice is just the bow arm is so tight that there's really no way for me to rest or to draw a pure sound out of the violin, so you hear a lot of squeaking and croaking. So here we have a little demonstration of sautier, which is working okay for this recital. It's just that in this recital, the sautier really only works well on A string. So that's another problem with the limited variation in height. Okay, this is age 15. Check out this dress, you guys. Isn't that amazing? My grandma made that. The thing I want you to notice about this technique is that every time I go to the tip, there is a crack in my wrist, meaning I'm pushing my wrist down like this in order to get to the tip. This is a major difference between the two techniques. In Golden Era violin technique, we don't crack the wrist at the tip because it makes it so that we cannot really fully transfer the weight of the bow arm and get a strong tone at the tip. That's my mom sitting concertmaster in the lower right. Okay, so this is age 16, and I had started studying with a teacher who was using a more extreme Franco-Belgian bow hold. So what I want you to notice about this technique is that there's much more action in the wrist and the fingers. Pretty much every time I'm doing a bow change, there's action in the fingers. So the bow change is kind of absorbed in this like jellyfish motion from the fingers. This is also a huge difference between Franco-Belgian technique and Golden Era technique. But as far as Franco-Belgian technique, I think this is pretty spot on. I think the bow arm is working essentially as it should. You can see I still have that same crack in the wrist when I go to the tip. And also not much variety in the height of my elbow. Okay, the sautier in this recital is a little bit unreliable. It's really amazing to see my knuckles go like this every time. Here's up staccato. It needs a little help from the upper arm. Okay, so with these string crossings, every time I go to the lower strings, particularly G string, I can't access G string without flipping my wrist. And so all of the string crossings pretty much, there's a little bit of help from my upper arm, but pretty much all of these string crossings are being accomplished from my wrist and fingers. Another huge difference between the two techniques. I feel like I could use more help from the weight of my arm to get stronger chords. Okay, in this section, I wanted to show that, I think in the recital I'm trying to accomplish some sort of meaningful dynamic contrast, but I don't hear a lot of dynamic contrast in this. The G string tone, in my opinion, is not satisfying. I'm trying to get some good tone from G string, but I don't have the tools of using weight from my bow arm. Here's some more sautier, or fast spiccato, if you want to call it spiccato instead. I feel like it's okay, but it's not very crisp, because the action is all from the wrist, and it's not as crisp or satisfying. And it also mostly only works on one string. The D string is okay. Okay, the left-hand pizzicato did not work at all, so full disclosure, my fingertip was cracked and bleeding at this point in the Lalo. So that was sad. Okay, these chords I think are okay, but they also could use a lot more help and power from the upper arm. Sautier not working on E string, like at all. So. Okay, so this next clip is going to be after I made the switch. This is about 18 months into my study of golden era violin technique. You can already see a few key differences. Obviously the placement of the fingers is one. I think the sautier is much more satisfying. The G string elbow level is much higher. And you can hear a difference in the tone. The tone that I'm getting on G string is much bigger. So, intonation issues notwithstanding, you can hear the sautier is more clean. And just to, full disclosure, this technique is only about 18 months old, so there are definitely aspects of this technique that are not present in this iteration of my golden era technique at this point in the learning process. So the things that are good are the variation in height of my elbow, so that I can get the weight of the bow arm up and over to whichever string I'm playing on. So that makes a stronger tone for all of the strings. I'll tell you what's missing is that I have not yet learned how to really rest the bow arm into the string. So I'm basically just getting the weight up and over and allowing it to sit on the string, and I can pour more weight in when I choose to, but I don't have the feeling of resting. And you can see it here. You can see that for E string my elbow is too high, And also the other thing that's missing is my fingers are still quite rigid. So I can see why, critics of this technique think it looks a little weird, because at this time when I was learning it at university with my colleagues, this bow arm is clearly too high. It's not resting. So it looks kind of like it's not relaxed. But I still prefer this tone. I think it's a stronger tone. Okay, here, notwithstanding the poor quality of the recording, the VHS recording, you can hear that I'm getting a bigger sound as a result of using different heights from my elbow, using the natural weight of my arm. And also you can see that I have learned how to control the speed of my bow much more effectively. That makes a huge difference in the tone production. Here comes that upper staccato again. This upper staccato is getting more help from my upper arm, so it has more chance to follow through all the way to the bottom. So here I want to just point out that I feel like even though I'm still missing those two elements that I told you about, the resting bow arm is yet to come and the fingers are a little bit straight. There's a lot of beautiful tone production available when we learn how to use the natural weight of the arm and we vary the height of the elbow to pour the weight into each different string. Here I'm showing the power that's available through the upper arm, training it to be just really strong and powerful. And I'm going to do a side-by-side here. Here's little Emily. She's going to try to do some gutsy pizzicato as well. But she doesn't have the training for her upper arm to do it. And the same thing with the power from the upper arm to make a strong tone with the chords, the brush stroke. So here she could have a lot more power to follow through these fast up bows. This is a good view of my fingers that are a little bit too straight. But I do want to show in this recital that I think one of the criticisms of this technique is that the students can only play loud, and I don't think that's true. We do also teach the students how to play soft as well. So it's just that they have more tools to play loud, so it kind of stands out. So some good dynamic contrast there. Okay, we're gonna fast forward about 12 years. This camera angle isn't the best for looking at the bow arm, but it's still, you can still see the deficiencies that I told you about. You know, I'm working hard, I'm trying to put the weight in, and in large measure succeeding at making, creating a big strong tone, but it's not 100% comfortable. So now Mr. and Mrs. Grootman are going to help me.
Test it. Drop it. Drop it. Heavier. Drop it. Drop it. They really have a light.
Really?
I'm so grateful for them.
Okay. So that you feel that this is the weight of the entire arm.
If the fingers are not so straight, if you like you have a bowl, little bowl in your hand, so like this little bowl in your hand. Make them. If you would have a fist, you would have to do it. So make it if you have a bowl in your hand. What will do, it will transmit the weight a little better into the bowl.
This?
Yes, yeah, a little more bowl inside. So this will, yeah. And you,
It's
of course. Ah, that's it. She did it.
Yeah.
Stop.
okay. Da da stop. Dee da da. This is where your power really has to be. You have to be loaded to shoot. Okay?
But I want to get the tip.
But you get to the tip. Get to the tip. Yeah.
You transfer to
Yes.
the string.
No,
It's
no,
gonna
but
test
now
to
it's
see.
still- It's not.
There's not enough weight at the tip.
Not relaxed completely.
Yeah, in the process of transfer, you.
Okay, turn up the volume because I'm going to do a little side-by-side comparison of the before and after. In the before version, it's a little smaller. This is a more open sound. Okay, so now we're just going to fast forward to a clip of basically my technique as I currently have it. I'm going to show you a performance of the Bach E major, but the audio is actually from a studio recording that I made, so you'll see some of both of that. The biggest difference being, you can see it, how low my E string bow arm is hanging. When I play on E string, my arm is resting and it's much more relaxed and resting into the string. And it's also more fun to play with it like that. So anyway, so this is the most recent iteration of my technique as it is, and I just turn this down for a second. Just want to let you all know that, you know, our technique is constantly evolving if we can allow it to, if we want to continue learning and refining, and there's infinite refinements that we can make to our technique if we invest the time. The technique being a very small, it's not really small, but it's only part of the gig. So my personal feeling is just that, you know, the goal of refining the technique is so that we can play in a way that allows the actual music and the message and the spirit of the music to come through. So if the technique is refined enough, it makes it so that it kind of disappears. It becomes sort of a non-issue, and the music is, and the expression and the spiritual message of the music is allowed to come through. So for me, that's the goal in continuing to strive to improve our technique. So, and you know, I'm discovering new things every day about how to teach technical elements in order to help my students to have a more purity and more clarity in their performance. So there's always new things to discover, and I just would encourage everyone who wants to play the violin to never stop learning in your technical journey. So that's it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you stick around. I will be releasing my tutorials very soon. As I mentioned at the beginning, the first set of tutorials is strictly about bow technique, but there will be left-hand technique to come as well. So we have a lot of things that we can talk about here on this channel, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time.